First order of business, call the roll. Welcome to the meeting. Commissioner Spader.
Here.
Commissioner Black.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Here.
Commissioner Franklin.
Here.
Commissioner Giviahu.
Here.
Mr. Witry.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Berman.
Here.
Commissioner McKay is absent, and I am present. And we do have a quorum. First order of business is to ratify or approve the minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second, thank you. Any corrections or questions on the minutes? None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved, thank you. Okay. First case this evening is case 2025-19P, special use permit for a limited retail use at 7515 Linder. Michael, ready? Counselor, is the notice in order for this case?
Yes, notice is proper and correct.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'd like to request that the staff report for case 2025-19P be accepted as written.
Yes, approved.
The request is for a special use permit for limited retail sales at Gandhi Foods, 7550 Linder Avenue. This is at the southwest corner of Linder Avenue and Howard Street in the industrial district in that area. The petitioner currently has a industrial building that is occupied by about 1,900 square feet of retail service use. The business is primarily a wholesale operation that provides Indian groceries to local restaurants in the area, so supplies, cooking utensils, dry goods, refrigerated goods, and it's been open since 2021. This is a view of the parking lot. We're looking southwest from the intersection of Howard Street and Linder Avenue. In 2024, the business opened up a retail portion on the east portion of the building. Here's a view of the interior. And it's consisting mainly of dry goods on shelves. There's refrigerated items along the left side of that photo. There are some utensils, as you can see in the foreground. And then there's a checkout area over here to the lower right. Majority of the customers, per the petitioner, will be shopping via internet orders. So if somebody's coming in to pick up items for somebody who's purchasing them from home or elsewhere, I believe it's about 60 to 70% of those are customers purchasing over the internet. And so it's not a high intensity use. The majority would be coming through that shopping area. There's also some local businesses that frequent the space. Petitioner mentioned that Amazon warehouse right across the street. When people are on their meal break, they'll stop over for a snack or some food or a beverage. And so it does, it's patronized by some of the employment generating areas in the neighborhood there. This is a site plan of the property. The retail area is down here, entrance off the parking lot. Parking lot was recently reconfigured so that it is off of a common one-way entrance from Linder out to Howard Street. Prior to that time, it was two-way traffic, but the driveway had the capacity of one-way traffic. So this was all fixed by the petitioner in advance of this public hearing. So we are appreciative of that. There's a loading dock that serves the warehouse in back. There will be a bike rack installed in this location, and we are not requesting any additional landscaping to be provided at this site. Typically we do, but there has been incidents of some rodent burrows in the past where our health department has asked that the landscaping that was along the side of the building be removed. to prevent that type of activity from happening, in the future. In this area, right now is just grass. We're not requesting any new landscaping be planted in this area, both due to the presence of overhead utility wires and buried communication lines. So it's kind of just leave it as it is. We don't want to dig in there and disrupt anything. There's a tree in this area, and then there's a tree over here. So our recommendation is just to leave the landscaping as is. So staff recommends that the petitioner's request for a special use permit for a limited retail use at 7550 Linder Avenue in an M1 Office Assembly zoning district be approved, subject to the recommended conditions and proposed findings of fact. During our review of the case, we noted that the space of the retail area is greater than what's allowed by code. And so staff further recommends that relief be granted from section 118-171E in order to provide a limited retail use that exceeds 10% of the total floor area. The 10% right now is the max on that, and they'll be at about 16% with the amount of space that they occupy.
So how many?
16%. 16, correct. Georgia Nut, just down the block on Linder Avenue, also has a retail operation. They were granted a special use permit in 1988 for their small area. And we are not aware of any traffic issues that have been generated as a result of that. And we don't feel that this is a high traffic generating use as well. I've been over here several times and not noted the parking lot full. So it's a small scale retail operation, not a full blown grocery store. And we feel it's a compatible use in this area. Proposed findings of fact. The comprehensive plan identifies limited sales of merchandise as being an activity that falls within the manufacturing, service employment, land use designation. The request is compatible with adjacent properties and the businesses that operate within them. Numerous wholesale trade establishments and warehouses are present in the immediate area, and another limited retail use exists on the same block as the request. It is not anticipated that the request will adversely impact adjacent properties. Adequate public facilities, including roads, drainage, utilities, and police and fire protection currently exist to serve the requested use. Adequate provision for the maintenance of the associated structures is demonstrated by the request. No adverse effects on the natural environment are anticipated. It is not anticipated that the request will create undue traffic congestion on the surrounding neighborhood. Public health, safety, and welfare will not be adversely affected by the request. Landscaping that harbored rodent burrows has recently been removed from the subject site, and no new landscaping is being proposed. Aside from the petitioner requesting relief to provide a limited retail use that exceeds 10% of the total floor area, all other applicable provisions of this code are conformed to by the request and are recommended conditions for the case. The petitioner shall develop the subject property in substantial conformance with the final village-approved floor and site plan. The petitioner shall not be permitted to expand the square footage of the retail sale area beyond its existing 1,910 square foot footprint. The petitioner shall submit to the Planning Division electronic files of the site plan in its approved and finalized form. And the petitioner shall comply with all federal and state statutes, laws, rules, and regulations, and all village codes, ordinances, rules, and regulations. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the right side here? Commissioner Spare?
You mentioned another retail
Turn
facility.
the microphone, please.
You mentioned another retail facility on the same block of Linder.
Yes.
What percentage of their space does that occupy? You said they got an exemption 88, I think?
It's much smaller because when you take into account the size of the overall production there, I mean, they manufacture chocolates.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I'm going back to a couple weeks when I was researching this, I believe it was like
So it's not
2%.
comparable.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
thank
was
you.
very small.
I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure which part of the,
Yeah.
of it. Thank you.
Mike, it's not a question, it's my same old thing. Can we please put in the requirement? I know, I understand other codes will apply, but we put in the requirement for the trash
Yes.
receptacles outside and the 4-hour rule. That corner happens to be particularly bad down the frontage road in terms of litter. I pass it twice a day, and mostly because of Amazon, and although they've been better lately, and so appreciate not adding to that problem.
Thank you for noting that. I will put that in, and we would add as a recommended condition.
Mr. Chairman? More of an observation and a question, I suppose. My observation is I see no reason not to concur in the recommendation of the staff. I do have a question, though. It seems that the retail operation's been operating since February of 2024, 18 months ago, give or take.
Yes.
They're now coming forward for the special use. Do we have an explanation for that delay?
It was opened without a permit, and.
Is there an explanation for that? Do we have the owner here?
The owner is here, and he can explain at the time
Okay.
of his presentation.
Fine.
But we issued an enforcement at the time and said that a special use permit was required. When it was discovered, this was earlier this year, that it had been open and operating, and the enforcement required that they come in and legalize the operation of this retail.
Okay, thank you.
I would offer that, so often, and the owner will probably tell you something similar to this, but businesses that are already selling food to one group of people want to sell it to the same group of people in a different way, don't necessarily see that there's a significant change in their operation. And so it happens in big stores, small stores, big operations, people tweak what they're doing, they're still selling the same thing. They just don't see the world like a community development director.
They come forward.
Yeah, and
We catch them, they come forward.
right, we've been working really well with them to come into compliance, so.
Any questions on this side? Thank you, Michael. Could I have the petitioner, please? You're here tonight. Oh, yeah. Good evening, sir.
Hi,
Give us your name, please.
my name is Anas Gandhi from Gandhi Group or Gandhi Foods.
Okay, could you raise your right hand, please?
Oh,
You affirm that the testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you.
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed. Thank you.
First off, thank you for your time. I didn't really have a presentation, but we started off as a small family business, slowly grew into the food industry, and then what we currently do, and our main focus has been for food distribution or food wholesale for the Indian market. So to supply the retail stores as well as restaurants in the area and other small ghost kitchens that are in the area. Slowly, we noticed that there were customers, because in order for us to pick the number of items that we have around 2,000 SKUs. It's hard for us to put them all in the warehouse. We were utilizing the the area that's in the east portion as just regular shelving for ourselves. And what we noticed were people were dropping by on their own and trying to see if they can purchase it. Initially, we did not know that there was a market for it. And so, although we opened up in February 2024, we were not aware of people actually wanting to come in that area because it is an industrial area. It's not an area where you'll see cars going for grocery shopping. We don't sell produce or any type of meat that would make customers come directly to us for everyday needs. However, we do have essential items that allow customers to come in every once a month to drop in. So to address the question that was earlier presented, we were not aware of the need that was there. And once we got to know that there was a need, it gradually grew into it. And we were not aware of the special use permit that was needed. Had we known about it, we would definitely have complied with whatever the requirements were. I'm not sure if there's any more questions or anything that needs to be addressed.
Commissioner Witcher, are you satisfied with,
I am satisfied.
thank you very much. Commissioner Giliahu?
Hi, thank you. Did your hours of operation stay consistent between the two different business models, or has it changed at all?
It has not changed that much. We tend to stay open the same amount of hours. There's no special hours for retail or wholesale.
Okay. Any questions from my right side here? None? Okay. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? At this time, I'd like to ask if anybody has a comment or a question on this case, concerning this case only? No one? Okay, very good. I think we've heard enough, unless, any more questions of either the staff or the petitioner? Anyone? Okay. So, in the request for a special use at 7550 Linder Avenue, do I have a motion to approve? Commissioner Speyer, thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Giviahu, thank you.
Right, left.
Call for the vote. Commissioner Speyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Black,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Giviahu, Commissioner Witry,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman, and I'll vote aye. Motion passes. This case still has to go before the Board of Trustees for final approval. They meet on the first and third Monday of every month. Good luck to you, and, yeah, thank you. Next item of business is a zoning chapter amendment to be added, to add accessory dwelling units. And who's going to present that? Oh, Jason, thank you.
Oh, I forgot you put it all together.
Excuse me, for the record.
All right. All right, good evening, Commissioners and Chairman Luke. My name is Justin Malone. I'm with the Community Development Department. I'd like to ask that the staff report be accepted into the record as written.
Granted.
Thank you. Case 2025-21P is a request for adoption of upgrades to the Village Code, Sections 11860 and 11891 related to permitting accessory structures in residential zoning districts. I wanted to talk a little bit about why we're here tonight, how we got here, and then at the end we'll take a look at the draft code language that has been prepared. So I'll start with a recap of a short timeline of how this request made its way here tonight. At the end of 2022, the Village Board tasked the Plan Commission to prepare draft affordable housing policy for review. A housing subcommittee was created and met to revise and update the housing chapter of the comprehensive plan. Once it was final, the chapter was presented to the Plan Commission with 4 themes listed: community enhancement, promote housing type flexibility, reasonable standards, and reinvest and retain. I'm going to come back to talk more about the ones in green in just a second. In June 2024, the Plan Commission recommended approval of the updated housing chapter, and in August, it was adopted by the Village Board, reflecting an updated vision towards the future of housing in Skokie. Last year, a new housing subcommittee was created to discuss and provide further recommendations on how the updated housing chapter of the comprehensive plan can be carried out. And promoting housing type flexibility was seen as an important future goal, meaning providing options to meet a larger range of needs for residents. The idea that a homeowner has possibilities and ways to accommodate their family's needs, such as finding more room for a family member or a caretaker, working from home, or aging in place, is in line with Skokie's housing goals. Additionally, residents who are seeking to make these modifications to personalize their home are seeking clear and predictable guidelines and standards before they move forward with their projects to save on time, on both, time and money spent. And so with the draft language for permitting accessory dwelling units in residential single-family areas that is before us tonight, there are some high-level takeaways from the draft language that I wanted to just touch on real quick. An ADU, or accessory dwelling unit, will be required to follow the same setback and lot coverage requirements as a single-family zoning district where they will reside. The ADU must remain subordinate or accessory to the principal structure. Rented ADUs will be subject to annual residential rental unit registration that the village currently has, and ADUs cannot be used as short-term rentals.
And so back to the timeline, a positive recommendation of the draft language for ADUs was reached at the previous housing subcommittee meeting. And the draft language is before the plan commission for further review and make a recommendation to the village board. And so what I thought we would do is have the draft language up on the screen and we can talk about any questions or comments that we have.
Before Justin opens up, is there any high-level questions about timing? One other thing that I think didn't make the final cut of the PowerPoint was that the village board had requested that the housing subcommittee take up the matter. And so as we were starting to parse through some of the things in the housing subcommittee, this was an item that we were tasked to work on with that group.
There's a question.
Commissioner Black, then Commissioner Speyer. Oh,
I have a number of questions, but you may answer a lot of them as you go through this. But I do have one that I think is important at the beginning, is I'm trying to still get a handle on what were the goals that were set for doing this. There were a couple very general statements, but nothing that really said, this is why we're trying to have ADUs in this village.
So the goals that I talked about in the presentation were from the housing chapter of the comprehensive plan, so they are a little bit vague, but they did talk about just having more options for housing in Skokie in general. One of the methods that we were brought to look into was accessory dwelling units, just as one option, and so we're kind of tackling these as they come up. So this was one that we wanted to reflect on as an option for housing type flexibility.
A broader goal that was discussed is the housing flexibility, is people being able to do things on their property, their residential property, that allow flexibility for living arrangements. So some of ADU activity and interest grew out of COVID when people were home and they wanted some, they could leave the primary structure and go to the accessory structure and do their work or live or host an older child that's come home or a caretaker, that the flexibility and the desire to age in place, some of these things were all tied into that. So in the previous community I worked in, some of these types of units were starting to come as ways to house adult children who couldn't afford housing in this area, older adults who wanted to live in a smaller unit near their family, caretakers, or just structures that were built as accessory dwelling units you could live, but that people were putting home offices. They're a professor, they work from home, not necessarily running a business out of that, and Justin will cover that, but just as some flexibility.
Commissioner Jeff Berman.
Well, I was one of two, I think. Was there three? One of two, maybe there was three. It was Cindy and Scott for a while.
Yep.
Were members of the Plan Commission that also served on the committee. And one of the reasons given, which I guess I'm going to call into question now, was that the state of Illinois is mandating an ordinance or regulation, a statute, thank you, requiring that communities within the state pass ADU language. But in looking today, it did pass out of committee, but it's been sitting idle since April. So I'm not certain that that's the sense of urgency. So I kind of asked the same question you do, because I think one of the things that I've asked repeatedly for a year, maybe more, is that I think this is a big enough issue that it should be put to the residents of the community, and that some type of survey should be done asking exactly what the community wants relative to, and residents and landowners want relative to ADUs, and that has not been done. And I propose not in some of the skinny surveys that we've done in the past, but hire a professional organization, spend some money, and get some real data out of it that is quantifiable. And that has not been done. And so, I question the same thing that you do in terms of why we're proposing this right now, and there were other alternatives in the committee that could have been taken up as opposed to the ADUs. In doing literature research, there's no proof anywhere in the country that this, and granted it's so new to a great degree in mass, you can't determine whether it helps or hinders property values within the communities they are. Chicago hesitated for a long time, and ultimately, I think last May, passed out of committee, and ultimately, the Chicago Board passed a very limited ADU legislation, but it only allows for like 1 or 2 per year to be developed. And my general feeling is that this, in answer to your question about kind of timing, I think this is premature, and I think more work should be being done. As a community from this, as a member from this commission to the subcommittee, I would rather see that we start asking residents about what they want. So more of a commentary than a question, but thank you.
Any questions? Scott Berman?
Again, on a general note, being part of that original subcommittee, we were urging the village to move in this direction. And I see this as that positive move, separate from what Jeff is saying. I like the idea of moving toward ADUs, but there's an inconsistency within it where we force that ADU applicant to then meet the FAR requirements I could understand, but to meet the parking requirements troubles me, because we're taking away that very spot that we wanted to promote as an ADU, the garage, which is that parking space off-street, and simultaneously telling the applicant that they have to go and seek further approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals to get permission to have taken that garage. So on one hand, we're pushing for the production of ADUs and thereby more housing in the village. And on the other hand, we're saying, except we really don't want you to do it, because once you're taking away that parking space, the Zoning Board of Appeals has the right per project, site by site, to decide that it should not be done. Going back to my original statement on the committee, I'd rather have ADUs than parking. And so we will have to, I think we should build into this ordinance that idea that once an ADU is approved for building code reasons and FAR and the lot size, we should not force them again to seek other approval for the removal of the off-street parking that we just encouraged on the one hand by taking away the garage.
Justin, has the committee, or have you, staff rather, considered what impact it would have on property taxes? Okay.
We have not
Okay.
had any research that we found on
Okay.
that.
Mr. Black?
There's a couple of, we've already talked about a number of things, but I personally I have an uncle that created ADU in his property for my grandmother. And she lived there for about 15, 16 years. And she needed to be there close to family. She needed the help. And it was an absolutely wonderful thing that they were able to do that. And they took a garage and turned it into a studio apartment for her. And for many of those years, she could live independently in that studio apartment, or pretty independently, and gradually she needed more and more help, but it was just a perfect situation. So I'm a supporter of ADUs in general, but Commissioner Berman just put his foot right into one of the disagreements that he and I have about parking, I guess, is that in our neighborhood, and I live in the R1 district, but in our neighborhood, we're one of the few families that actually park our cars in the garage. And so the street is full of cars. And I'm in an R1 district. I have a lot of friends that I've asked the same question to that are in R1 and R2. And, you know, especially in R2 districts, there isn't a whole lot of parking available because everybody's parking on the street because they use their garage as their storage room or their workshop or something else like that. And to think that we would pass an ADU ordinance that would increase that off-street or the on-street parking load beyond what it already is, I think how it's written is the right way to have it written. So we're a little different here, but it's also the question of finding out from our constituents, what do they think? And I know just in reading the the conversations from the subcommittee meetings during this previous year, there were a lot of questions that were brought up, including, we need to survey this, we need to ask questions, what are we doing here? And those things that hasn't been done, as Jeff Berman has mentioned. I think we do need to do that, to get that input, to be able to, make a good decision here.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
The parking to me is, to Scott's point and to Commissioner Black's point, is kind of up in the air because at least what I read today, what passed out of committee in the state, prohibits us from requiring dedicated parking for the ADU. So, whereas this requires the ADU to have a dedicated parking place. And so, now I don't know if it's changed since May, might have, but that's what passed out of committee. So, so that's an issue. The other thing is, to me, so I don't sound as such an ogre, there's really two conversations here. One is ADUs for business, the revenue generating sources, and ADUs for all the good reasons for family support that were mentioned earlier, which I think most people would have a hard time disagreeing with that use. The issue that came up at the subcommittee is, okay, fine, what happens when the initial landowner sells the property after the ADU now becomes vacant, what have you? How can you require them to put a loved one in it? Not my issue. I mean, if they buy the property with that ADU and they know that's the requirement, then they put a man cave in it. I mean, it's, that's what they could do. But that was one of the criticisms of arguing that, fine, let's get started, let's dip our toe in the water, and let's make ADU language that does it for family support, and then we can look at businesses later. I'm sorry, I hate to say this, but it's true. It's a fiction to think that they're going to be regulated under, I forget what we call it now, but the ordinance, because most home rentals, they have to self-identify. The owner of the house has to self-identify in order to fall under the statute, the ordinance that would require them to go through the training and be regulated by it. So I suppose here they're going to have to get permits to build an ADU, so they're self-identifying, but over time that's going to get lost. And so the regulation of them and the maintenance of them and the policing of them is going to get lost. And so I'm fine with, let's dip our toe in the water and do something for family support, but creating this environment where we're going to create a variety of rental properties on where most of our little city lots, now you, unbeknownst to you, in a house that you've owned for 10 years, next door is going to be having a 4-rent family of 5 in what was once a garage, with or without, depending on how Illinois comes down, a dedicated parking place. Doesn't seem like we want to take that on with the 12 of us here, or how many are here, without asking the community what they want.
Yeah, I can answer a couple of the questions. I believe, and I couldn't quite pull it up, a municipality can't, what was proposed in the Illinois, the bill, was that a municipality can't make a ADU so restrictive that you can't allow it. So I think in our review, this was not, adding the parking space requirement was not something that would make it so restrictive that it wasn't going to be allowed.
I thought it was subject to approval pending a dedicated parking spot, which we are requiring it.
But because we put the relief language in there to allow somebody to seek relief from that, then it does not make it impossible to obtain
Doesn't
ADU.
encumber the resident.
Right. It doesn't say you
landowner.
can't provide the parking space.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, and I apologize if this was in the
Commissioner
material.
Spare?
Can you turn your mic on, please? It is. Oh, sorry. I just have a quick question. When we say the dedicated parking space, do we mean an additional dedicated parking space for the ADU? Or are we saying in lieu of the current dedicated parking space that is the garage, for example, you need a new one? So,
Right, so you would have to have it, so it would be, for most single-family homes, it would be 3 parking spaces. So that doesn't mean that it has to be within the garage. If there's space
You have a
And
carport.
driveway.
Right, in the driveway, driveways, not all houses can have ADUs, that's a fact. Some houses can have them and some can't. Some on your block,
I feel like
Commissioner,
my house has a one-car garage and the driveway can accommodate one car right now. So I could not have an ADU because I don't have a third space.
right,
Got
you
it,
can't,
okay.
You can't park in tandem either, outside parking.
Okay.
Tandem parking is not
so, but
allowed.
this is where the ZBA looks, we can exercise all of our good learning, that the ZBA, it's not a precedent, just because one property gets it doesn't mean that the other one can't. The ZBA will look at relief and provide relief if they deem it necessary, if it meets the standards for relief. So maybe now's a good time, because I think some of the things that came up might be good for Justin to go over with the language for everybody.
Okay.
Do we want to start just at the top then?
Yeah.
Previously, there was not a definition for accessory dwelling unit, so we made sure to add one here. Just making sure that it is a complete independent living facility, and there's standards that have to be included for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. So we're not looking at a closet, basically. Also, it is subordinate to the principal structure, as I mentioned before, too. Because accessory dwelling units were not in the code before, the only accessory structures that were mentioned were garages. And so we made sure to add another section speaking about the height of garage, clarifying that the height of garage is there. Feel free to stop me if anything comes through. In terms of using it for a business, we added language that talked about that it can't be used for a business that's not associated with the property owner that resides on the permanent structure. Also can't be used as a short-term rental, as we talked about in rental registration as well. There is an annual registration fee. Up-to-date contact information would be provided to the village. And then there's a landlord seminar that the owner would go to. The 220 square feet minimum is based on the minimum building code requirement for an efficiency unit for 2 people. So that's what we started from there, even though it's still quite small. And so we, similar to, I guess, roof types that are mentioned in other, from a garage or from other municipalities, they talk about different types of roof for different heights. But we did want to make sure with this item D that we talked about habitable space that clarifies as an office or a workshop, where you don't have to really fully deck it out so that you're not looking at kitchen and bed space and everything, where it's basically a space above your garage for a desk or, maybe a futon or something to take a break between your meetings or something like that. And so that's the difference there with the habitable space. We did find that a visit to the Appearance Commission would be helpful to make sure that compliance with the how's it phrased? The design or the vision of the main structure is similar. And our fire department had some requests for sprinkler and address posting as well. And so that's how that's there.
Would that be a separate address than primary?
I guess it depends on if they were using it for, a rental that the person needed separate mail, then we could get the address added to the village's system, and then, something posted either from the street or from the alley. I guess if a family member's staying there, you could just get the mail at the front.
Commissioner Witry?
Excuse me. I have 3 zoning lots, 105 front feet, whatever. My home is on lot 2. where must the ADU be situated?
In the rear of the in the rear of the main structure,
Lot 2.
yes,
Okay, it can't be on Lot 3, it can't be on Lot 1.
in the rear yard of,
Lot 2.
yes.
Okay. And at the committee level, and I skimmed the minutes of the very last meeting, was there any discussion of the loss of permeability? I mean, if I put in an ADU in my backyard, I've now lost, grass and flowers and what have you. Where's that rain going to go?
So the.
Into the sewer, no doubt, but.
Sure, the structure would be still subject to the same requirements that are for a garage or another kind of structure. So we would still be looking at a percentage of coverage for the rear yard that's in the code of 30%, I believe. So you would still have to make sure that you're conforming to the standards of the zoning district.
All right, then, yeah, what about the concept, well, some might call it density, I might call it overcrowding in some various neighborhoods. You get 5 homes, you get 5 ADUs, now you've got either, 5, 6, 8 more people in your neighborhood where you had, you had 10, now you have 18 or 20. What was discussed about that, if anything?
I think that the lots are kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on the existing structure. Maybe they have a patio or a pergola or another structure that is kind of already with the limiting their impervious coverage, or maybe they don't have enough everything's kind of on a case-by-case basis for that. I would say that a lot of the discussion that we at the housing subcommittee was cost, and so we don't really anticipate everybody who's eligible maybe jumping at the opportunity right away.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Berman.
Just to address Mr. Wittry's question, Commissioner Wittry's question is that because I brought the issue up, maybe not at the last meeting, but at least one of the meetings, is that people move to the suburbs for a reason, versus urbanism and staying in an urban. We're a great example, right? Where our house in particular is walking distance from the city of Chicago. So if we wanted to have a more dense population, parking issues, what have you, we could have stayed in the city of Chicago. You move to the suburbs for a whole variety of the reason, and some of that which is not to have the density that might be being added by ADUs. And we got to look at this and vote on this as if it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years out. I mean, this is not for 18 months and it goes away. The decisions we're making here are going to affect this village for a long, long time, and until a group of people are put back together and said, I'm going to say it my way, that was a huge mistake, and let's look at what we want our suburb to be and see about how we deal with those ADUs. Again, I don't have a problem with the fact that we're doing family support, that's one thing. But to do it as a business venture, which we're going down the path and we're characterizing these two paths as one, is a big mistake. Because assuming that it meets the code and can get built, it can have an awful lot of ADUs on some of the blocks in these communities. And that affects how dense those populations are, what the parking's like, what's a variety of things, including perhaps drainage in those areas. And when a lot of the people have been living there for a long, long time, never anticipated having many more people living around them. And that was, at least I brought it up, whether it was discussed, because most people didn't agree with me. But I think it's a real issue that we've got to stop looking at it for just today. Do we want it off our desk? What's the long-term effect on this community? We don't know. What's the effect on property values? We don't know. What do our residents want? We don't know. And here, there's 8 or 10 of us that don't know anything, by my definition now, other than how we're defining an ADU, and Illinois may or may not move forward their ADU that's been sitting there since April, and we're going to make decisions that have a long-term effect on this community.
Commissioner Berman.
It seems as though I'm in the minority, but I'm registering one other possible complaint besides the garage and zoning board of appeals argument, and that is the sprinkler requirement seems like one more burdensome, onerous requirement that we at the subcommittee, we never talked about sprinklers, but we said, well, let us unburden the applicant, and by this we are overburdening the applicant. I, though, like new urbanism. I like the density of cities. So I, for one, and I think the rest of, and I know, and the rest of the subcommittee sort of felt we should move toward more rather than fewer ADUs. And so registering that was my one complaint about parking requirement, and my other complaint now is about the sprinkler system.
Okay, Commissioner Franklin.
I just wanted to say that I can remember sitting here a year or two ago when we had a number of community members coming forward talking about housing. And I can remember at least a couple, and I know who I'm talking about, who said, I really want my parents to live in my garage. Not as a garage, of course, as an ADU, but looking forward that they would really appreciate the opportunity to make their garage an ADU for their aging parents. And of course, this was already a couple years ago. Having said that, is there any way to separate out that, maybe we would be willing to make some sort of accommodation for people who are taking care of their adult children, their aging parents, versus somebody who's running their business out of this new structure? Or I don't know how to do it, and I understand not everybody is maybe on the up and up, but
I think
to
you
put
can,
that in the
you can
ordinance.
compartmentalize it, is it possible, a set of rules for income property versus a set of rules for residential family use?
So I'm gonna recommend very strongly against ever regulating anything by family. First off, we will be legally very vulnerable, because how do you prove somebody's related to you? Everyone, I'm sure, has lots of very interesting family relationships, people who they consider family, people who they don't consider family, but may be actually family. It's a very complicated thing. And I worked in a community which the zoning code at that time did speak to family relationships as a way to govern space usage. And you get into things like how many toothbrushes are in the cabinet. I mean, where mattresses are. It's a terrible thing to try to regulate. So, and it probably, when projects first start, the best intentions for the first thing, but to Commissioner Boardman's point, we will be making a decision, and we would be living with this for many, many years. So the first accommodation may be for a family, and that may be well-intended, but then what happens 20, 30, 40 years down the line, you still have a thing, and it's like, do you have a grandparent to buy this house? It just gets a little funky, yeah.
Commissioner Black first, then Commissioner
Mine's
Bay.
relevant to this point, though.
Okay.
Is yours also?
Would you?
Okay. Is there a way to change it that you can't use it as a rental property or as a business? That it has to be an accessory to your house that is being lived in by somebody who's part of your household, however you define that?
So, we would, again, that's a little, I'm just thinking this through on the spot. There may be a way to rent it, not rent it, offer it for occupancy without, no currency may be exchanged, or whatever, whatever legal language is. But trying to say the individuals must be related to the
I don't
people.
think you
Yeah.
have, I'm saying the opposite of that. I'm saying, can you just like say it's not allowed to be used as a rental?
Commercial versus non-commercial.
Exactly.
I
So
think
whoever's using it, I
Well,
don't care if you're related or not, if it has to be someone who's an
I
accessory
think
to
it
your
just,
house.
I think it just gets tricky to try to say it must be an activity or occupancy related to the principal structure.
Not saying that, though. She's saying non-commercial. You're basically saying that a short-term rentals, no short-term rentals, changing that to say no
No rentals at
commercial.
all.
No rentals at all.
No rental, I think, yeah, like I think what Holly's saying is, it doesn't matter who's living there, you can't charge the person
Yes.
to live there.
Right,
Exactly.
And I'm trying to think of it that way versus saying you can't rent it, because that
Yeah,
gets a
just
little
say
tricky,
it
because
can't
then,
be, it can't be
but then what happens if you want to rent
for-
the whole structure? to somebody.
It can't be rented separately than the structure.
Right, so I mean, if you're renting the whole house, like if you're renting the primary and the
You know,
ADU happens
It
to
should be
come with it.
considered financially
Yeah, in the same way that I
tied to
can't,
the
in the same
main
way that I
property.
can't rent out one of the bedrooms in my house, I can't rent out, but someone can come stay there for the weekend or for however long I want them to. Treat it as another part of the house for that purpose.
well,
That
then,
its,
then
that its
you're,
financial ties are with the house.
well, then you're getting into short-term rentals then.
No, I'm saying, it's for purposes of this language, whatever the rules are for the bedrooms in your house and what you can do with them, the same rules would apply to the ADU.
So if you rent out your house, the ADU goes with it?
Yes.
Correct.
And presumably would not generate additional revenue over and above the base rental for the property itself?
Yes.
Right.
And if you're going to have someone occupying your ADU, that's great. They can be a family member or not a family member, but you can't charge them.
Right.
No commercial venture. That takes care of all those issues, and it gets away from us hanging up a shingle saying we're open for business to start building ADUs and renting them out. I like that. I think that works.
No, but that could be an enforcement
I like that
nightmare.
too.
Well, it's not gonna be enforced, I'm sorry, Johanna, but there's gotta be enforcement issues
No matter what.
Agreed.
Maybe not initially, but over time, there's gonna be. Same thing with, we have this neighborhood integrity ordinance, but again, like I said, and I don't know the numbers, but I'm guessing it's fairly high. We have houses rented out all over the village that nobody knows they're rentals, and it's gonna happen. But the point of the matter, at least when they get discovered, they can be shut down.
You're talking about short-term rental.
Any rentals.
Yeah,
Oh,
My point is that you just eliminate the option to rent it
I
out.
like that. I think that works. It gets our toe in the water.
So my recommendation would be if, as you move forward and consider, so after you've had public, if there's anybody here who wants to provide public comment, I remind you, there may be somebody who wants to provide public comment, but that you attach that as a recommendation from the plan commission, because I don't know where that would put, on the spot, I don't know where we would put that right now, and my only other thought is, any one of us could say, gosh, I need a roommate, let me put an ad wherever, I need a roommate and you don't even have an ADU. So if we're treating this as to the point of we're treating this as one big house in the accessory structure, and I have a bedroom to let, just no different than I have it in my primary structure, I have an extra bedroom, maybe I want a roommate.
well, you might as well have a
But you
boarding
can't
house.
charge for it.
Yeah, we can though.
But I can charge right now, and so how does that?
You can?
Yeah.
If I wanted to gain a roommate, I could charge for it. I should go get my building registered as a rental, because I'm not renting it. But if I wanted to rent to somebody in my home, get a roommate, we all, right, many of us have lived in situations with roommates, we share something, then how is that different? So I just need somebody, I need our corporation counsel to maybe opine on this.
So
I would-
if I could just say something?
Yes.
I think I'm in the minority here in the group, because I think renting out the ADUs is an important piece of what we're trying to accomplish here. Not just doing the family thing. I mean, the family thing is important. I gave you my own personal example of why I think it's really important. But I think we're also dealing with the situation of affordable housing in this community, and as other communities are. And I think providing vehicles to have more affordable housing is important for the village of Skokie and the people who live here. I think that one of the ways we can control this, and you talked about density, and you talked about land coverage and drainage and all these kinds of things. So let's think about what we're requiring as far as setbacks and coverage. If our coverage ratios are not restrictive enough, now that we're considering ADUs, maybe we need to make them more restrictive to avoid getting these huge, massive ADUs being constructed or something else. But I think it also goes back to let's get input from the community, let's get input from other people, let's hear what everybody wants to say.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner.
after listening to the conversation here this evening, is anyone other than myself under the impression this may be premature?
Yes.
Agree.
And that, as a formerly practicing lawyer, I'd like to see what the state of Illinois has to say about this, because if we submit this to the trustees and they do something, they say affirm it, adopt it, and the state of Illinois guts half of it, well, then we're back to the drawing board. Now, I'm not saying that we must wait until the state of Illinois acts, because they may never act. But I do think that there's been enough questions here that this should go back a little bit to the drawing board at the committee level and respond to some of the queries that we've had tonight. So, my motion would be to defer this or table it for further discussion down at the
Well,
committee level.
Commissioner, since,
I would second that.
well, so we do have home rule. I don't know if home rule overrides what the legislature is going to do.
Where's our counsel say?
But the council says that's home rule.
I can't comment on legislation that hasn't passed. They could overrule home rule, like they did with assault weapon bans and things like that.
Oh, that's true.
So it just depends on the language
Of the statute. Okay.
So I think that's even more reason for us to defer at this time.
Well, I don't think we should defer. I
So
think
you
we
have
should just
you have a
continue.
land use matter before you, so you
Yeah.
don't, you don't get, the plan commission doesn't have the power to send it back to committee. That is a duty that the board of trustees has, so
Yeah.
if you'd like to,
We do have the ability to
We
table.
can recommend.
you can't table it indefinitely. You
No.
could-
No,
because
we'll
if-
table it one
We set it
year.
up north,
Right.
we set it up north with a recommendation to send it back to committee.
You could do that, or you could hold it for one meeting and indicate questions you want answered, and we could bring it back to the next meeting
Well-
and give you answers so you can.
Why don't we bring it back?
Well, but there's a question, I'm sorry, I've been asking this question for a year, and it's not going to get answered by the next meeting, and there's a sense of urgency is, what do our residents want? We represent the residents of this community, and I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree about this is an affordable housing issue, because, and I'm going to contradict myself somewhat, but the number of ADUs we are going to have ultimately in my lifetime is not going to impact greatly on affordable housing. We have an affordable housing ordinance that was hard fought a couple of years ago and got passed, and every case we see now that has residential elements to it has to abide by the affordable housing issue. But here, we have the potential of punishing people that have lived in their houses for decades and say now because someone wants to start a business next to you, you could have a family living in the garage next to you. It's a very different issue than trying to solve the affordable issue. Our first obligation, I'm sorry, is my feeling, is to the residents that have been here, not people that want to move in here and say they can't afford to live here. Our first obligation is to protect our residents. And I don't feel that allowing people to set up businesses in their garages is a way to protect those landowners. And maybe I'm a terrible person. I'm fine with it for family support, which we say we can't do. Tolly came up with a great suggestion. It needs to be fleshed out. I would say that since we're not going to have time to go ask our residents, let's at least kick it back to a meeting or two and let Corporation Counsel opine on whether or not we can do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Spare.
Joanna, can you tell us, it sounds like we're limited in what our ability to do tonight is. What are our options for today?
Sure. So I would recommend if you check to make sure there's public comment, if any, so you've taken the Plan Commission is the deliberating body to make recommendations to the village board on planning and zoning matters. So your job is to take any public comment, and then ultimately you're gonna have to provide, you can pass it without a recommendation, you can pass it with a recommendation, and then the recommendation can be negative or positive. But if you'd like to spend more time, what I think makes the most sense is to ask questions, and, the Plan Commission can't do a inquiry and a questionnaire, because you're guiding, you have to talk about the zoning code. That is your responsibility, to interpret it, to review it, to advise on that. The village board's responsibility is to query the people and see what they want to do here. That is their, and so if you want to pass that as we recommend you do
Yes,
this.
our recommendation would be to ask the board to provide a survey.
Well, but that's not based in our zoning
No,
code.
no, you're right,
Yeah.
but it's a line item.
Well,
our
you
recommendation.
can go along with the table of the night.
Right.
There's
True.
a motion to table, which is seconded parliamentary procedure. We're supposed to move forward on that and stop everything else. We're continuing to discuss, but table and motion, table and second moves the deal forward.
Well, we could have-
And we're allowed to ask for,
Well, we
we're
could
allowed to
have-
ask for more information.
Well, I before you tape, I know there is technically an active motion on the table right now, but I think you should, Justin can sharpen his pen, and we can ask you can put some questions
Okay,
that you want
thank
to put forth, you can do it in public, but you also, before you do a motion to table, you really should take public comment if somebody has come here.
Right.
Oh, we will.
We will. Okay,
We
thank
will.
you. Thank you.
But my other recommendation would be to ask Corporation Council to tone in on this.
That would be number one. Based on, assuming the majority of us agree with what Holly's suggesting, which makes sense, and, I mean, we have to look at it, see it in writing, but assuming Corporation Council sees that there's a way through with that, that may be our solution. We don't want to do, evidently, it's wrong to suggest that there's a two-path methodology here for some reason. And so the question is, how do we combine it? Recognizing that every community is looking at it, we need to eventually get something done. How do we do it without creating a bunch of small businesses in everybody's backyard? And this sounds like a way to do it. And still preserve the ability to rent out your room if that's what we want to do. Maybe we lose that right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner.
might we have staff inquire of our state reps and state senator about what is the status of this bill down in Springfield? Is it moving forward? Is it stalled? Does the speaker not want it? I think those are questions that would be appropriate for a response.
It appears on the website, nothing's moved since May 24th, I think, but certainly it would be, or April 24th, I think it was. So it would be nice to know if there's discussion going on about it. And, Mr. Chairman, if it's not already as one of the items, the Corporation Council look at the suggestion of no commercial ventures allowed within the ADU.
Well, we could ask, to move this ahead for further study at a future meeting with a recommendation to Corporation Council to look into this and perhaps, get some more questions from the staff, have them define some of the issues that we raised tonight.
And then I have one more question for the list, if that's okay. I would like to know what the majority of our residents want relative to ADUs.
Well, we can't, like, that, you're talking about a survey, we can't authorize a survey.
I can ask the question.
We can ask for one, we can't authorize it.
No, I'm not authorizing it. We're listing questions that we want answered for the table session. This is one of the questions I'd like answered. I'd like somebody in the community to tell me that I'm wrong and that they've come back and they've asked the population about what's wanted.
Okay. Mr. Franklin?
Is, sorry, I don't recall seeing it in what I've read here, but is there a way to limit the number of ADUs in a particular block or street?
You talking about density?
Well, or just
Density of ADUs.
density
Of
of
ADUs,
ADUs
yeah.
specifically, right?
You're right, there's nothing in here currently about that, but that could be an option to talk
Okay.
about.
That's a good one.
Another question?
Yes.
This is more a question about, because we got deeply into the other topic, but can you explain the 28-foot rule? So you can build an ADU that's 2 stories?
Yeah, so that would be something if you had like a garage with an apartment above it. So it'd be a full-size living space on top of your garage.
It's like a carriage house.
Got it.
Where there isn't one now.
No.
Now you just have a picture of a garage, and now you're building entirely.
Well, I do know of a couple carriage houses in
So is
Skokie.
that different than the regulations of that currently exist on garages, or is that the same regulation that exists?
It's different because currently a garage height is maximum at 15 feet, period, so that's the only accessory structures that's mentioned, and so nothing above 15 feet.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
What's the status of our, is there a motion to table on the floor?
We need to have public comments.
Comments first, okay.
Justin, have you, any more to add?
Not for me.
Okay, let me open this up to public comments. Okay, is anyone in the audience, please come up and. Okay,
Good evening, everyone.
yes,
Good evening. My name is Simon Marcus. I live at 8742 Avers, which is basically a T of Avers and Dempster, right across the street from the new Dunkin' Donuts that's on Dempster, just so you know where it's at. I wrote down a couple of notes for myself as everyone was giving their opinion. First of all, as far as parking, I don't think there's a house in Skokie that most likely will qualify to have an ADU on the property that would have much more challenging position as far as parking issues. There are at least 3 homes to the east and to the west, so 6 homes total that live on Crawford and park on our street. At least 5 that I would know of. Every day, 7 days a week, they park on our street. Right now, my wife and I are going to go home. If I can't park immediately in front of my house, I can park one car, 2 cars away. So what I'm trying to say is, parking, if it's not a problem for me, I don't really see how it's going to be a problem for anybody else in Skokie. So I don't think parking is a problem. The last gentleman, you mentioned something about Chicago not having or just recently passing something. I have a small business that we do water and fire damage restoration to homes. 3 years ago, I worked in a home. It's a coach house. I think that's basically an ADU. 3 years ago. And the house looks like it's been there 300 years ago. Forever. I can give you a specific exact address to drive by. It was on Belmont and Cicero, I believe. One other thing I wanted to say, as a personal thing to me, if eventually this gets passed or doesn't get passed, but if it does get passed, I think, sir, you made this point, or a couple of you did. Don't make it to the point where it's impossible. You have to have 10 parking spots and this and that, and just plainly say, no, you can't do it. I would rather have, no, sorry, you can't do it, rather than, yes, you can do it, but you have to do this, and that, where you're basically telling me I cannot do it. And one last thing as far as the rental. I have 2 family members that might want to take advantage of this. One is my mother-in-law, which is 88 years old. The other one is a 29-year-old daughter that lives with us. So I have both extremes, young and old. I hope I never outlive my daughter, but what if I own the place and I outlive the person that wants to live there, and I invested $100,000 in an ADU, and that person passes away, and I don't pass away for another 20 years, 30 years. What do I do with the ADU now? So as far as the rental situation, again, either make it where it's doable for someone, and this rental thing came to mind after the last meeting that I attended with a couple of gentlemen that I recognize. So either make it doable, or just plainly say, no, we don't want it in Skokie. So those were my comments. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Would you mind signing in, sir? Just putting your name.
Sure. Okay.
I had one
Back to
more-
you, Commissioner Black.
I had one more question to ask on our list of questions that goes along with our table.
Okay.
And this is something probably could be answered immediately. Do we require new construction residential to have sprinklers?
Yes, we do.
All new construction residential?
Over a certain amount of footage?
Jeff, I didn't know that, but okay. So even a tiny little box that we're creating of 220 feet as a addition to or as a separate structure pertinent to an already existing building that does not have sprinklers, this funny little ADU does need sprinklers.
Okay,
A lot of ADUs are sitting on top of garages.
Many would.
And so I think that the thinking from the fire department is that if you have some very combustible things, you want sprinklers or any kind of fire suppression system.
So my question is, I guess the question then isn't that, it is, are we going to require sprinklering an already existing single garage that's converting to an ADU and not having anything built above it, so there are no cars related to it in the future? Does that need to be sprinkled?
Here, you raise a good point. My suggestion is as we move forward, we strike the zoning code portion of ADUs must have a sprinkler system because our building code would address these things. And that makes it
Right.
simpler.
Extra buildings would need it, but an already existing garage would not if that
Right,
were
so,
converting.
so maybe you strike that to make it simpler and not have less things to worry about.
That's fine. That was one of the onerous conditions that I didn't like that we were placing on the ADUs. Okay.
Commissioner Black, did you have a motion?
I
Who
actually
a
had,
motion? I'm sorry. Well,
I had-
Commissioner Witry.
I had a motion to table.
Okay.
More questions?
I have just a few more things.
Sure.
So you just addressed one of the questions that I had with regard to fire protection. But as I read through the proposed draft language and looked at the zoning code language for R1 and R2, I've found a number of places where there were some just minor inconsistencies. And so I'll use building heights as an example. I'm really not sure why we need to address building heights specifically in the ADA and just say, follow R1 and R2. Because they're almost exactly the same, but they're one is a little 2 feet shorter and things like that. Why don't we just keep it simple? And try to keep that as simple as possible. I didn't see anywhere where the R1 and R2
Standardized
zoning
building height.
codes couldn't
You want
apply
a
to the
standardized
ADU.
building height?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's probably lots of detail we could get into, but that should be deferred until we come back to this.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Witry has a motion on the floor. You ask Commissioner Witry if he would include that in his motion.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, high standardization.
yeah, that's
Okay.
agreeable.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to make sure that we do is, there are terms that are used in this proposed language that are not defined terms in the zoning code. They're a little bit different, livable space, for instance, and things like that.
Are you saying they're ambiguous, or?
They're terms that aren't defined.
Okay.
And they're, for instance, when you say livable space, that isn't defined. Now, somebody said, well, it's X, I don't remember what that term was, but that's not what it says in this language. So, again, if we could make sure the language that we use in this amendment is the
Coincides
same
with the
kind of
language in the
we
building
have in the
code.
zoning code, and if we need something different, we need to define it so it's clear.
Okay.
Should it mesh with Illinois in what they're passing, if it's a defined term?
It could, if it's specific to ADUs, yes, but,
Yeah.
Statute.
but I'm even thinking of
Subject to the
things that are
statute?
not, quote, ADA or ADU specific, but for example, the 220 square feet livable space. If you look at how livable space is defined, if you go to 20 different villages, you'll have at least 10 different definitions. So if we could make sure that we get that kind of language defined and clear.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
with respect to the statute that's undergoing scrutiny in Springfield, I mean, we can all get a copy of the bill as presented, maybe staff would grab it and send it to us, so we have an idea of what's coming down the road, if anything. And to answer Commissioner Black's suggestion, that definitions coincide throughout, or they be the same
Consistent.
throughout.
To be consistent.
Be consistent, thank you. I think Illinois is going to be the big foot here if in fact that bill ever passes. All right, and we have to conform to it. So perhaps staff would get that for us and maybe circulate it? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I second Mr. Witchery's?
Yes, I was going to call for a second.
I did already.
You did already, okay.
It was a while
So,
ago.
the motion on the floor currently is to table and to have staff go back and
Answer the question.
answer questions that have been raised tonight with, and Commissioner Black had added that a standard height be established and to define the definitions to make them sort of coincide with our coding, our codes. And also, in all differences to the state, all this will be subject to Illinois statutes.
And answer Tali's question about the issue of commercial versus not.
Right.
And answer the question of whether sprinklers are required for simply the rebuild of an already existing structure, that you're not putting a new addition on the top of.
And answer the question of
What?
what the majority of our residents want.
Mr. Chairman?
It's just a survey. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? It's just,
I'm saying that I've been asking for a year, so I'm just asking now differently. What do the majority of our residents want?
well, I don't think that can be established, between now and the next meeting. Why don't you raise that at the next meeting?
What does that do? I mean, maybe a survey's been done and I'm not aware of, but it's, we're saying ask our questions, I'm asking my question.
Okay, okay.
If I could, I'd be
If the
more
answer is we
specific.
have no idea, it goes to most of my points tonight.
I would suggest even being more specific. What do our residents in R1 and R2 districts want? Because those are the residents that we're impacting.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Survey.
One other thing, Mr. Chairman, in support of the motion to table, our goal is to make this better. It's not to deep six it, it's not to impediments in the way of staff and coming forward with a better ADU amendment. So that's my feeling.
Okay. All right. So the motion.
Can I offer that we do a date certain to create predictability into when this is coming back?
Commissioner Witchery?
Yeah, so I was gonna.
March?
I was gonna suggest the earliest it comes back is January 15th, December.
That would be the earliest.
Earliest, so anything after, because just looking at the calendar, you could do just looking at the calendar for next meetings, January 15th, or we could do February 5th.
Well, I know the staff is busy with other cases, but how long do you think it would take your staff to formulate all this?
Let's not hurry.
No, I understand, but I also don't want to, I will tell you, there are quite a number of people who send us emails that don't come to these meetings who are very interested in this. And so we're amassing a little list of people who do want to build these in their property. And
They're just chopping at the bit.
they really are. And there's people who want to put together plans there, and we're not being rushed by them, but just know that there is a growing group of people that are interested in what happens here. And I think they're similar to the speaker that spoke. If you're going to do it. If you're not, that's okay too, but we just want to know.
May I respectfully request then that if it isn't the January meeting, then it'd be the second meeting in February?
February 19th?
Yes. I unfortunately have a commitment out of town on the 5th. I would like to be here.
Is it doable, February 19th?
Kate, do you know if we have a meeting on the 19th, right? That's not one of the ones we moved around.
I know it's
President's Day weekend.
It's on your calendar, okay.
That's the second meeting in February.
The 19th.
Yeah, there was a couple we moved around from certain holidays, so I just want to make sure that one wasn't one of them, so.
Yeah, I put those in my calendar and the matches.
So the target date is February 19th.
I concur.
So I would offer that maybe you amend the motion to.
The motion would be amended to indicate that this will be lifted off the table on the 19th of February.
Okay. Very good. So Commissioner Witchery moves and Commissioner Jeff Berman second. Call for the vote. Commissioner Speyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Black.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman.
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin.
Aye.
Commissioner Giviahu.
Aye.
Commissioner Witchery.
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman. And I'll vote aye. Okay. Very good. So moving along. At this point, I'd like to open the floor to public comments in general. I do have a comment here. I think it was sent to us late.
Kate's gonna give you commentary on that for during communications.
Okay. So this will go on the record, right? Very good. Okay. Anything else? Kate, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson and Commissioners. For staff communication, I'm going to make a statement. One written comment was received for cases 2025-04P, 05P, and 20P relating to 7952 Lincoln Avenue prior to the November 6, 2025 Plan Commission meeting, but after the packet was published. Printed copies were not at the dais during the meeting due to human error. The comment has been shared, and it will carry forward with the cases as they go forward to the village board, including publication in the village board packet. That concludes my statement.
Thank you. No, I don't see any other comments.
Would a motion to adjourn be in order?
Staff, give staff any other final closing moments?
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Move to adjourn, second. All in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.
December, there will not be meetings
So there's no meetings in December. That's what's being said.
Have to make sure that nothing got continued tonight.
So Kate, that comment, was that Emmy's note?
Yes.
Oh, nice, that was nice of you.
It's the right thing to do.
She sounded very silly, but I think you know.
We are, although I have offered some times for a phone call, nothing is set yet, but the intention is to have a follow-up conversation. Well, I'm very much a supporter of education and understanding of zoning.
Justin, you have a really nice
And so I think that while, as you know from being a trustee, that public comments really question and answer, the intention is to help inform her understanding by responding to some of her questions.
Some people like to write.